So it's the night before. I've just been taking Instagram photos. That's my room's chaos. And I'm just packing. So I thought I'd bring you along for the packing journey. Okay, so all packed. The suitcase is because I'm staying a few days, but the actual rucksack is for the actual assessment of what I'm going to use. And I've got a go-in sports kit, so got that laid out already. Oh my god, it's just hit me, I feel like, that I've got to get up at 5 and do this. It's, Jesus, that's how I'm looking right now. Okay, it's 5:30 in the morning. I'm tired. Bless you. Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. I hope you're all well. Today I am going to make a video, as you can see by the title, all about the experience of going for the Army Assessment Centre, the British Army Assessment Centre. So for background, I'm just going to go through briefly the application process for the Army and then like where I'm at now, and then obviously about the assessment centre. So quickly and briefly, the application process is I applied in July 2020, then you have to do an online questionnaire which basically filters out certain medical things, whether it's like schizophrenia or drug abuse, those type of things. Then you have to do a clinical phone call with one of the Army doctors and they go through your full medical history, and that's where you have to disclose like everything. Then you have to send off medical forms to your GP, which takes forever because GPs are notoriously known for like just not filling them out. Basically, it took me I think 4 weeks to get that form filled in, and then I could send it off. You also have to do one if you wear glasses like me, to go to your optician to get that done. So there's a lot of faff just to get to this point. Then you have to pick a unit, which is like your nearest one, because I'm going in as a reservist. Then they say if they want to sponsor you, then you have to go down and kind of meet them. Then I had to do a careers discussion to say like what role I wanted to do and whether they had that available. Then I got put on the waiting list once my medical forms from the doctor came back for the assessment centre. So all of that took from July till end of September, so quite a long time. And then from September to now in December, that's how long I waited for my assessment centre date. In the meantime, I was going to my battalion and to the unit and basically doing what they call phase 0 training with them, which is where you learn about rank structure, you do drill, you do some PT, which is like exercise, physical fitness, and then I also did some fun stuff like room clearance because I'm going with the rifles. So that's what I've been doing in the meantime, and then I got the call probably at the end of November to say that I would be going for my assessment centre on the 10th of December. So that's basically the run up to it. And also to note, I am going in as a medic, so my fitness standards and stuff were a little bit lower than obviously normal infantry would be, but it also meant that I needed a higher score on my cognitive test. So it's kind of like swings and roundabouts. So at the actual assessment centre, let's just jump right in and explain what happened. I've got my notes on my computer, so if you see me looking down, that's what it is. I had to get the train because, long story short, is I'm from the Midlands, so when I made my application in July, I finished university and I was living there. So my medical forms went to the Midlands, you know, assessment centre place, which is Whittington Barracks, which is like Lichfield. So all my medical forms were there, which meant that I had to do my assessment centre there. But because I moved to London in the meantime, it then meant that I obviously had to travel up from London to Whittington Barracks rather than just going out to Purbright, because that's obviously like Surrey way. That's where I would go if I just did my medical forms here. But I didn't want to like prolong my application by 5-6 weeks and have to do the medical again. And obviously you have to pay for it as well. So I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to go up to Whittington, and obviously I'm from near there anyway, so it kind of made more sense to just carry on and go up to Whittington. So I had to get the train up. I had to get up at 5:30 in the morning. Okay, I needed to be there for 10 AM, but the train they booked me was quite early and I needed to get to the station. So it basically meant that I had to walk to the tube, get 2 different tube lines, go to Euston Station, get 2 trains, and then I had to get my mum to meet me because a lot of the documentation you need to bring to the assessment centre, like your birth certificate and, you know, GCSE certificates, that was all at home. I didn't have any of that with me in London, so I needed her to meet me, and obviously we lived down the road anyway, so she met me on the day and handed that over, and then I kind of just sat in the car with her outside the station, because the army are like also known for just being late to these things. Like, we had to be at barracks for 10, and the minibus to pick us up from the train station got there at like 10:05, and bear in mind, everybody that was waiting had got there from like 9:20. So I was like, do you know what, I'm gonna sit in the car with my mum in the warmth rather than just stand outside with everybody else in the cold. So I was sitting in the car with my mum, had my documents and stuff, and was waiting for the coach to pull up. And then I didn't really see it pull up, but because basically the station is separate car park to the station, they had parked in the separate car park, and then I just saw a guy like walk over, and then I was expecting somebody in full uniform, and they just weren't. They were just dressed in black and like no beret or anything. So I was like sitting there trying to like spot who it would be, and then I see all the people, because you can kind of spot who is outside the train station like waiting for the assessment centre, because they're all in gym kit and they all have bags and they all just look a bit nervous. And I saw them all walking, and I was like, shit, like they were all going, so I had to like sprint across the car park from where I was with my mum to like join them. And the staff there, that's another thing, you have to call them all staff, or if they're in uniform it's sir or ma'am, or by their rank, but if you don't know the rank it's best to just staff or sir or ma'am. Anyway, so the staff, he was like, oh, are you here for selection? I was like, yes, and I was like, but bear in mind, I sprinted across this car park to try and catch up with them. And then he was like, I need this documentation, I need that, show me your ID, and I had it all with me, so I was like, here you go, and then put it on the coach. But he was like, next time don't be late, and I was like sitting there thinking, I wasn't late, I just didn't see you. And to be fair, like, I literally didn't miss a thing, but it kind of just like made me a bit nervous. And then we had about probably a 10-minute coach journey. Nobody spoke on the coach at all, which was weird, because when I've watched videos of other people do this type of thing where they explain about what happened at their assessment centre, they were like, oh yeah, people spoke on the coach, and I'm like, that didn't happen. And then when we finally are like on barrack, we have to like queue up in a semicircle around the staff, and they give us numbers. So I was number 23, and that's your number for the whole day. They don't call you by names, they'll just shout like, oi, 23 or whatever, and you just have to like know your number. Then we went and sat in like a side room, and you had to put on 2 bibs. So you had a green bib and a yellow bib. So you have the yellow bib on first, the green goes over the top. The green represents that you need to do medical and you need to do classroom tests, and the yellow represents that you need to do fitness. So when you've like passed each stage, you'll take it off so they can kind of see you roaming around and know what stage you're at in the application process. So we went and put our bibs on, and then we had to move and go into the lecture theatre. So the lecture theatre was then full with all the other people there, because they do the assessment centre in 2 waves. So people that come in at 8 and people that come in at 10. So there were already people sort of sitting in there and either waiting for like other medical staff interviews, whatever. They did a presentation, and the presentation was all about like what's going to happen that day, how to address people, and who to go to for what, basically, and where things are, and the rules of like COVID rules and stuff of the day. So then they give you a bunch of forms to fill in once the presentation's over, and they basically consist of COVID questionnaires, and you have to do pre-employment checks, so basically consenting to that. But because I've lived abroad for more than 6 months, I had to do a separate form, and then I also had to fill in a separate form because I have family members that are living abroad, and because I'm going in as a medic, I also had to fill in another form, which was the enhanced DBS check. It was a lot of rigmarole, and I sat there kind of filling these in for like half an hour, maybe 40 minutes. And the thing that really like pissed me off, honestly, the start of my assessment centre was like a rocky start, and I was at a point where I was like, fuck this, I'm going home, because I just was really cheesed off by like the way they were treating me. And I know they do it to everybody, but it's just because I had like been up since 5 AM, I didn't get any sleep the night before because I was so nervous, and this is like by 11 AM, so I've been out like 6 hours, I've been travelling up and down the country, like I was just kind of tired and hungry, and then they were kind of giving me attitude, and I was just kind of like, for fuck's sake. But basically is they all give you a pen, and then I filled all my forms in obviously with the pen, and then when I presented it to the woman to get it checked, she was like, this is the wrong colour pen, you need to go and do it again. But the way she said it was kind of like, oh, you're such an idiot. And I was just sitting there thinking, you're the one that gave me the pen. And I don't know why, it just really irritated me, but she like grinded on me by the way she said it. I completely get it, but at the same time I found it really rude. And then I filled the form in again, which loved it. And then she was like picking it apart, being like, you haven't signed this. And I was like, yeah, because it says signed by the authorised person rather than by the applicant. So I assumed that wasn't me. That's not the way I said it. I feel like the way I'm delivering the story back is like with attitude. I was just like, oh, you know, they said this. And then she was like, oh, actually, I didn't know if you're meant to. And then she had to go and speak to like 3 different people to see if I had to fill this section in. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be here all day. And by this point, it's 12, it's literally lunchtime. I haven't had any food or water or anything for like 3 hours since I've been there. And I'm thinking, this finishes at 4, right? And I'm still in this hall filling out forms and it's 2 hours in. Great, it's gonna be a long day. But anyway, then those forms all got like, you know, green lighted, and then you have to go back into the reception and be like, I've done my forms, next stage. And then you have to do your urine test. And this is another thing, I just was at a point, you know, when I get a bit like this, that when I'm super tired and overwhelmed, I just get a bit like, I go into my own zone a little bit, which is hopefully something I can snap out of now that I'm, you know, with the army. But basically, you have to do your urine test, and the toilets are right by the main reception, but you have to write your number on it. And I'd done it, and then I thought, shit, I haven't written my number on it. So I went back to write my number on it to go get my pen from my bag. And he was like, it's a one-way system. And I got right shouted at. And I was like, I'm so sorry. In my head, I left the bathroom thinking, oh, I'll get my pen. I just wasn't thinking. And yeah, so then basically, as I was going through the one-way system, getting back to my staff, the whole time I was like, don't cry, just suck it up. But yeah, so basically I'd been there for like 2.5 hours at that point, and all that had really happened is the staff were just having a go at me for being thick, which, great start. Then once you've done the urine sample, you get to do your medical. So they basically said you don't get a lunch hour, you just have to eat in between everything, and you don't know when anything is, and you don't know what order you're going to put anything in, so you're very much just like left in the lurch a little bit. And it's also worth noting the lunch we got, so we got this egg and salad sandwich, God knows why. Who thought that was a good idea? Awful. Then you got a packet of crisps, and then you could choose either between biscuits or a chocolate bar, and then you got given a flapjack and a bottle of water. That was like your food for the day. So when I was waiting for the medical, I was like banging open this flapjack. Then I got called for the medical. The first thing I did was the hearing test, and you sit in a booth, put headphones on you, and then they do beeps in one ear. They go quieter but higher pitch, and they do it in the other ear. And now for the first probably like half the hearing test in the one ear, I could hear them, and then it went completely silent. And then I heard quite loud ones, and it literally sounded like somebody's mobile phone was going off, because if you don't press the buzzer when a beep goes, it does it more aggressively. It's like beep, 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 beep. And I just thought someone's phone was going off, because I was like, it was quiet in that ear for like a good 30 seconds. I just assumed it was switching over to this ear, and then I realised that actually no, it's still going in this ear. So I was like, oh shit, like trying to press down the buzzer. So that was fun. And I knew obviously for this next time, because it's the same test in each ear, that like, that's not someone's phone going off. It is in fact just the hearing test. But no, I passed that. I got higher 1. If anybody does anything medical, you know what that means. I don't. Apparently it means a pass. Then once I'd done that, I would then had to queue and wait for the eye test, the colourblind test, and the BMI test, which is all done by the same person in the same room. You walk in, you do an eye test, you stand and just like read like letters, you know, like you do at the opticians, and they cover one eye. And it's funny because when they covered my left eye and I was doing it with my right, I can read to like the whole board, and then they turn the board and change the letters so you can't cheat. And then I did it with covered my right eye, I did it with my left, I literally could barely see the top line. I was like, wow, I'm blind. And then she was like, do you want to put your glasses on and do it? And I was like, I really do. And then I was like, oh my god, this is eyesight, I can see, oh my god, crystal clear. And then you had to do colourblind test, which is basically they hold up a book of numbers and you just see if you can see the numbers. Then you do a BMI test, so you take your shoes off, you stand on like a height, you know what I mean, they do height, and then you get on the scales. And she was like, oh my god, the audacity. And I was like, it gave me a complex. She was like, oh, your BMI is 22.7. I would watch that over Christmas, because if it goes up a little bit more, then you basically will need to lose weight before you can go and do basic training. I was like, did she just call me fat? Because ouch, I was so offended. And I know I'm heavier than you would expect someone to be for 5'5", but oh, and then you have to go and do the electrocardiogram, the ECG, which I was prepared for, because everybody's videos I'd watched, especially the female ones, were basically like, yep, you got to get your boobs out for it. And everybody was like, you got to get a bit like traumatized, because they didn't know and they turned up on the day and were like, you got to get your tits out. But I knew that you had to get your boobs out, so I was kind of like emotionally prepared to do it. But basically, yeah, you go into a room, strip off from the top half, they put like pads on you, and I remember the whole time just thinking, wow, this is like the only person that I've ever let touch my boobs. Okay, like, a bit awkward. You've joined a very elite club here. I remember just the whole time I was being really nervous, and she was just chatting to me about how long she'd worked there, and she was like, I've worked here since 1993, and I was like, oh, my mum did her, you know, assessment centre here for the army, like, in the 90s. You might have seen her trying to make small talk, and then she was like, you need to calm down because your resting heart rate's 110, like, chill out. And I was like, secretly just thinking, I would chill out, but your hands are on my nipples, so, like, I'm just a bit on edge. Basically was like almost doing some meditation with me, and I got it down to like 87, and then that's pretty much it for the majority of the medical tests. But then you just need to go and see the doctor. You basically go through your full medical forms that you got sent to the GP, all your medical results from the day, and they also make you do a medical questionnaire, and you have to circle and declare anything, whether you've had it in the last 12 months, currently have it, or have ever had it in your life. So I'm sitting there circling asthma, back pain, you know, fractures, like the lot, and then they go through it with you and basically say like when, what, how, why. And then basically that was all fine. The only thing that almost got me deferred, like so close to getting deferred, is in 2015 I had a really bad injury, and obviously it was on all my medical forms that went to the GP, and they declared it then, and obviously that all got green lighted and was fine. But when she was reading it, she was like, oh, I don't like the look of this, and I was like, why are you doing this to me? It's already been green lighted. Please just let me in. And because they'd written it down as septic arthritis, apparently that's automatic deferral. So she then kind of like looked at my back and she was like, I don't think it's that, but I'm going to speak to the medical examiner. The whole time she was out of the room though, I was sitting there like, please don't get me deferred, because that means I'm going home, and it'd push this whole process back, and I just want to get in and do it. I'm here, I've psyched myself up, like, oh. And she came back, she was like, yeah, no, that's fine. He said not to worry about it, because it's obviously been a long time since then, and I've had no problems in the last 5 years, so that was fine, thank God. And then you have to do the examination where you go down to your underwear, and then she basically sits there and like does all your joints. She's like, that's my, you know, representation of it, because the way she was flicking my joints about was so quick, and it was like, fine. And I was like, how can you feel something that quickly? Then she makes you like walk along a line, do it normally, do it on your heels, do it on your tiptoes, do it on the side of your feet. And then she was like, do some press ups. And I'm not gonna lie to you, doing press ups in your underwear is quite demoralizing. And then you have to do some squats. And literally I did my first squat, and because I've been sitting there cold all day, it's been raining, my socks were like wet, which I didn't even realize until I had to take them all off and strip down for the medical. And literally I was leaving footprints on the floor because my feet were wet. That when I was doing my squats, when I did my first one, all my bones in like my feet just cracked, and I looked at her, she looked at me, and I thought, that better be okay. And then I did some more squats, and that was pretty much the medical over, and that was all a pass. Basically I was relieved when I got to that point, and then I knew that I just had to do the classroom test and the physical. But I'm not gonna lie, that was probably half one, maybe the time I'd done all the medical stuff, quarter two. So then I had to do my classroom stuff. So the first thing I did was the cognitive test. So it's out of 100. When I took it in the past, because you get to do a practice, I got 43, and I needed to get 52 for my role. And I was really nervous about it, because if anything was gonna stop me being a medic, it was going to be that. It wasn't going to be the fitness or anything like that. It was going to be the cognitive test. For context, you need 26 for the infantry, and you need anything from like 35 to 50 to be in REME, and the typical score for it is about a 51. The gist of the test is there's 5 different things you do. The first one is you basically have to like spot the difference. They'll give you like website links, or they'll give you sentences, and you've got to see how many differences there are between them, but it's all timed and it's based on speed and accuracy, so you have to do as many as possible. The second is my least favorite bit, which is where you have the arrows. It's basically interpreting rules into pictures, so they'll be like white above black and left up below, you know, right down, and it like then that translates to arrows. You basically then have to memorize the rules and then pick the picture that matches. And you do get a practice of 2 or 3 questions before you start each round, but still it was trauma, because I remember when I did it in the past, I was there like, I don't understand. Then after that you do a maths test. So it's basically you get 2 sums, and then which one's bigger and which one's smaller, but you see one sum, memorize it, see another sum, memorize it, and then you go on like that. Okay, so my battery went flat, sorry if the camera angle changed. And then you do like categories, so it'll give you 3 words that represent categories. So it'll be like building, building, tree, and then you memorize that and get basically words. So it'll be like house, ship, oak, and then which ones match the category. So out of that I'd be like 2 out of 3. And then the final one, which is I kind of find difficult as well, is where it will be like rules and how it translates. So it'll be like the fireman is happier than the soldier, but the soldier is sadder than the engineer who is happiest. And I kind of do it like happy, sad, happy, and like put them in order. But it was kind of hard to do the test because I could just hear everybody in that room talking, like people weren't being quiet or anything. And I literally heard the two staff there talking about how he's going to propose to his girlfriend over Christmas, and I was literally sitting there like, how am I supposed to concentrate, guys? Then after that, I volunteered to do the technical selection test, which you only need to do if you want to be an engineer. Or if I fail the cognitive test, the engineer job roles are a bit lower. So I will take that test to see if I can do an engineer role. Otherwise, you're basically just stuck with being infantry. So I took the technical selection test, and it's 55 questions. It's multiple choice, and you just circle the answer. You have, I think, 45 minutes to answer the questions. So basically, I'd say C or B at GCSE level. By that point, it was 3 o'clock. And obviously, the day finishes at 4. So, and I hadn't done any fitness yet. I'd barely eating because I'd bounced around from one thing to another. So I was happy the classroom tests were over, to be honest, and I just kind of thought, whatever scores they are what it is. Then I walked outside to go back in the reception to basically say like I'm ready to do fitness. It was raining and I thought, this is great start. So I was sitting in this room waiting for fitness, and loads of people were basically coming in this room who had finished everything, had offers from the army, had their interview, and were basically waiting to go home, and I'm sitting there waiting for fitness. And then I got called with one other guy to come and do the med ball throw and the lift, and this guy was probably like 35, 40, like my height kind of, so not that tall, but like looked quite stocky, and he went first and everything, and then I followed. So you did the med ball throw, and normally you get two or three goes at it, but they only gave us one go, but I'm guessing that's because we both passed first time. And then you have to do the lift. The guy that I was with went first, and the staff was shouting at him the whole time he was doing it, being like, that's so weak, put your back into it, you're not even doing it properly. And he kept spreading his feet out, because basically the lift is you get on this plate and there's a bar and you pull up through the bar, but it doesn't move. It's just like how much strength you push down into the plate, and that determines the weight that you lift. So there's no like weights on the bar or anything. It's all just like your max lift. And he kept spreading his feet out like that rather than keeping them straight, and he was like, stop being a fucking dinosaur, keep your feet straight. And I'm almost wanting to laugh, but I'm also really nervous. Anyway, so he did his. It took him like 5 or 6 goes because they kept going and going and going, and I imagine that's because he obviously didn't get the score that he needed to get. I went on, he told me the technique, and I don't think I did it right the first time, and he was like, oh, you need to do it so your arms are fully extended, and I was like, okay. Then I did it the second time, and then he was like, you can leave now. And I was like, oh shit, like, did I get the score I needed? Like, what did I get? I needed to be able to do 46 kg for the medical role, but for any other role, realistically, it's 76 kg. Now, I weigh, I think, about 58 kg, like, after breakfast. So I'm, like, basically having to lift my body weight and then some, so I was a bit worried for that. Actually, it's another thing to mention. You don't know your scores for anything. All you know is that you've passed the medical, but you don't know the cog test score, you don't know any scores, you don't know anything for the fitness, what score you got at all. So you don't know until the interview what you actually got. And then we went and did the run, by which point you can literally see your breath because it's that cold. I think it was like 3 degrees, and you have to go in your t-shirt and like shorts or trousers and do the run. And it's raining, and there was me, the guy with the dinosaur feet, and some other random guy, and we did the run together. We were the last ones to do it of the day. I needed to get level 7.2 on the bleep test, but I was kind of aiming for at least level 8 because the other roles I wanted to do were a 7.9, which was either artillery or REME. But it was so cold that I literally felt my lungs burning the whole time. But anyway, so we're going back and forth. And whenever I've done the bleep test before, I've obviously done it on my own. I practiced twice before I did the actual one in the assessment centre, so I didn't have that much practice. Then we were running back and forth, and you kind of like pacing with them, but then there comes a point where you realise that you're significantly better or worse than whoever you're with, and you have to kind of ditch them. In my case, it was the fact that they were kind of lagging behind a bit, so I kind of was pushing ahead. But it was also weird the fact that I was doing it with 2 guys, and I did significantly better than them, which was like ego boost, but also like, I don't know, that's another thing that messes with your head, because you're just like, you compare yourself to everybody that's there, but when you're there with majority men, there was 40 people there, me and another 2 girls, and the rest are guys, so you're constantly comparing yourself to men. So we're doing the run, and I think when we got to like after 7.2, I remember thinking, okay, at least you've done what you need to do now, but keep going. Got to about 7.4, and then the guys start getting warnings, but because they call you by your number, as I'm running, I'm like, what number am I? Oh yeah, 23. You can get up to 3 warnings. The 3rd warning, you're out if you like miss your foot on the line. They both got warnings. One of them got out at level 7.5, and then it was just me and this other guy, and he was on his 2nd warning. I had no warnings, and I was just kind of like, you're doing it for the sisters right now, like keep running. And he went out I think on level 8, and I just kept going and going and going and going. And then at that point, I was the only one left, the staff, and then there was a sergeant there who was like, come on, put your back into it, you can do it. And I was like, thank you, but I also want to die. And it just got to the point that my head was so not in it. I think I got off at level 8.4, which is quite a weak attempt. 8.7 is infantry standard, 11.6 is paras for like context. And when I'd practiced it, I'd done a level 9, but I'd never gone more than level 0.9, because more that I just stopped and was like, level 0.9, like, we're fine. But I kind of do regret that on the, like, about my run performance on the day. I remember just thinking, they're both out, I'm the only one left, can't be arsed now. Do you know what I mean? Which is so, like, such the wrong attitude. But I remember just thinking, I've literally been awake for 12 hours. I had 1 hour sleep last night. I'm just like done with this now. I know I'm in, so just let it be, all right? When I came off, he was like, the sergeant was like, that was the best female run time of the day. You should be proud of yourself. Like, the weather conditions aren't ideal, because it was chucking it down with rain, literally. I was soaking wet in a t-shirt. But he was like, you know, you can do better than that next time. And I was like, yeah, I know that, thanks staff. It was kind of nice to know that it was the best female run time of the day. As I did say, there's literally 3 other girls there, so it's not like much to compete with. And then once we'd done that, we then had to go back into the lecture theatre and wait for our interview. So my interview was with Major Carter. He was a lovely bloke, really nice. He was just really chatty. Basically, he made some small talk and made me feel at ease straight away. Was asking me like, oh, why you've come up from London, explaining the situation. And he was like, where you from? And he was like, oh, I'm from this town, which is basically 2 miles down the road from my hometown. So we had a little bonding session, and then we went into the interview, and you're basically briefed to know that they're going to cover phase 1, phase 2, and your sea drills. That's what you expect to come up. And it's baffling to me that a lot of people at my assessment centre didn't even know where they were going for phase 1 or phase 2, how long it would be, and they were basically like, they didn't get in because they didn't know it, and they were like, it's a job interview, like you should know how long your training is and where it is and what it consists of. And when I went in, he basically was just having a chat with me of like, why do you want to go in the army, like why do you want to do this role? And I gave all my answers, obviously, and then he basically said, I've got to ask you 6 questions, and they consisted of, I've literally written them down because otherwise I won't remember. What's their policy on drugs? Do you have any tattoos? Do you have any piercings? Do you have any financial issues? Do you have any criminal convictions? And do you know your C drills? Now, the C drills are basically their core values. C, courage. D, discipline. R, respect for others. I, integrity. L, loyalty. S, selfless commitment. That's all you need to remember. And people really struggle to remember that as well. And I'm like, yo, it's on the website. Like, you could literally have memorized that on the train. And I basically reeled that off. And then he said, oh, I'm not going to insult your intelligence by asking you about phase 1 and phase 2. I'm just going to ask, do you know what it consists of? And I was like, yes. And he was like, okay, let's move on. And then he basically just said to me, okay, let's go through your scores. And I was super nervous at this point. I was like, what have we got? I don't know. He did the fitness first. And he was like, so med ball, you got like 3.2. Then on the lift, you got 87 kilos. And I was like, whoa, 87 kilos. That's like, what, 30 kilos heavier than my body weight. So I was like pretty chuffed with that one. That's not bad for a little old me. He said that I did like 8.4 or something on the run, and I was like, cool, cool, cool. Then he went through the test scores, and I was like, haha, this is where I'm worried. The technical selection test, you got 35 out of 55, and 30 is the highest score that you need. And I was like, oh, pass it then. Then the cog test, he literally just was like, he rushed it as he said it, and I was like, what? And he was like, what do you mean, what? And I was like, oh, sorry, like I'm in shock. And he was like, yeah, you got 69. And I was like, whew, like, and I said to him, that's a lot higher than what I got last time. And he was reading his notes and went, yes, you got 43 last time, a good improvement. And I was like, thanks, yeah. Like, I was just well shocked. The highest you need on the cog test is a 60. So to get 69, I was like, basically you can do any job role. So I was super happy with that. And then he basically said, yeah, congratulations, you have passed all the requirements you need to do to be a medic. You're in the British Army, like, here's your certificate. And, oh, let me get the certificate. And then they give you this certificate. Yeah, and then he basically said to me, there's a note on file here that says that basically your unit or your candidate support manager has basically suggested that you should go for officer, because obviously my role is just a normal like standard soldier role, and because I've got a degree in doing a master's, they were like, you should do an officer. And he asked me like what role would I consider doing if I were to commission, and I was like, to be honest, I'm not sure. I think that I definitely want to do this role because I want to be boots on the ground for a bit, but maybe in the future I would commission, but I'm not sure what it would be. And he said, have I considered doing law? But then I'm like, funny story that, mate, but I don't want to be a lawyer. And then I also asked him like if I wanted to go in as a regular, like could I, like just keeping my options open. And he said, yeah, basically once you've passed the assessment centre, which you have, these scores will stay on your file and forever, providing the role that you want to do in as a regular matches the standards that you've kind of met at the assessment centre. You can just like use these scores, you'll never have to come back into the assessment centre again. You know, that's pretty much it for the interview. Handed my certificate and then sent me on my way. And the one thing that I thought was really nice is when I was walking back into the reception to give them my final bib back, one of the sergeants stopped me and he was like, 23, and I like turned around and I was like, yes, staff. And he said, you're gonna go really far, you are, best of luck, good luck with everything. And I was like, oh, thank you. And I was like on a high walking out of the office thinking, yes, I've passed. Like it's been months of work in the process and now I can actually finally join the British Army. All I've got to do now is get my DBS to come back cleared, which that will be fine, and then you go for attestation, which is where, you know, you do your oath of allegiance and all that jazz, and then you get your service number and you're officially in the army, and then you can start doing your basic training. I've got phase 1 Alpha Bravo and then phase 2 to do, and then I will officially be a medic. So we're probably looking at another 6 months by the time I have all my training and stuff. But I'm super happy to have gotten in. It was a big worry on my mind for a long time. Like for a couple of weeks before my assessment centre, I was working out like 5-6 times a week, like properly just kind of putting the graft in, because I knew as well that you're not meant to train, you're not meant to have caffeine, you're not meant to do like pretty much anything 3 days before you go to the assessment centre, which is also weird as well. Like me not working out for 3 days straight after having worked out 6 times a week was like weird, because at least when you're working out you feel like you're working towards something, but then when you're doing nothing it's just like a weird mental thing. It was such a good experience. I really actually enjoyed the day. Once I got over the little hiccup in the beginning where I was like, I don't want to be here and I was stressed out, once I got over that and got it like through the process of like doing the medical and stuff, I actually really enjoyed being there and meeting people. That's pretty much my experience of going for an assessment centre with the British Army. I know this video has been super long, so if you listen to it all this way then thank you. If you want any more videos about the army, you know, my process, why I'm going for that role, anything about training, let me know in the comments. And that's it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. I'll see you guys next week. Bye guys.